So starting the test drive in this AT4X, of course with it being an AT4 variant, it does sit up higher than the standard Canyon. But what I like about this is it doesn't feel as much of a, I don't feel like it's lifted as much as the typical Sierra AT4s and AT4Xs. Of course, this is a mid-size truck as opposed to a full size, but it still feels more maneuverable, and I don't feel like there's that much of a difference driving this as opposed to just a typical Denali or an Elevation, something like that. But getting on the interstate here, I'm going to try to give it a little bit, just not too much. Again, with this one only having 11 miles on it. Still gets up pretty quickly without giving it full throttle. Now I have the adaptive cruise on here. And honestly, the ride quality is much better than I was anticipating. I can still feel the road, but when I hit bumps, it doesn't jar me as much as you'd expect in a truck like this. Now this is only rated to get 17 miles per gallon city, 17 highway. Factor in the turbo 4, the lift, the weight, and all of that. And unfortunately, that's the best fuel economy you get here. But I will say I find these more fun to drive than the V6 or the 4-cylinder in the older Canyons. Now it's a TURBOMAX, but still. But wind noise isn't, or I should say road noise isn't bad, and the wind noise wasn't overly intrusive. I can hear it, but it's not loud, if that makes sense. I also have the sunroof shade back as well. And then we do get auto stop as well. Now for this price point, I do think it is a bit steep for this truck, but I mean, it's really just for all that you get here. The price itself is not overly expensive for an AT4X, but almost $60,000 is a lot of money. Now compared to the new Rangers, the new Tacoma, not sure how this will hold up. I feel like a lot of the smaller trucks, the mid-size pickups from Toyota, Ford, as well as GM were pretty lackluster in a lot of things. Now Ranger bringing the 2.3 turbo, they kind of, and even with the redesign as well, I feel like they were ahead of the curve because Toyota hadn't really touched anything for a minute in terms of their pickup truck lineup because everybody just liked what they had. And then Chevy, just with the Canyon and the Colorado, they were okay. You had the ZR2 trims, which were pretty cool, but for the most part, they just hadn't gone through many changes as well for several years. But this has come to the table, and I feel like the Colorado and the Canyon, and everybody was probably already in development anyway, but it really kind of pushed everybody to get their stuff together in terms of the new Tacoma and the new Ranger, which both look pretty good to me. We'll see how it holds up against these, but definitely love how they did the interior here. I feel like they didn't go full on Tesla and everything's through the touchscreen. You still have buttons and knobs, which is what this buyer likes. And it's still, with the TurboMax, something that I feel more attached to, if that makes sense. The engine just makes sense. It's powerful. It feels more like the Duramax diesel that was offered in the older generation Colorados and Canyons as opposed to the 2.3 that's offered in the Ranger, and that's just my opinion. But I think this is definitely a head turner. It's fun to drive again, looks good, looks tough, and you've got all the tech you could want. You're just having to pay around $60,000, but inflation, everything's just high. So it is what it is. But with all that being said, this will bring me to the end of my review of this 2024 GMC Canyon AT4X.